Sofia Lin always thought she was my sugar daddy even though I never spent a single penny of her money. After her first love came back, she pushed me into another woman's room. "Help your sister close the deal," she said. "Then your sister will reward you." But when I really started spending time with that woman, Sofia broke down. "I didn't say anything. Who allowed you to change your heart?" I accompanied Sofia at the KTV until late at night. She hooked her finger under my chin, and I instinctively pulled away. For some reason, she always liked to do that, teasing me like I was a puppy or a kitten, even though I was much taller than her petite frame. But she never did that to Jorge. She would blush just from touching Jorge's hand, even though he was always cold to her. And even though I was her boyfriend, Sofia hooked my chin again. "Gabriel, how many years have you been with me?" I brushed her hand away. "We've been dating for 3 years. Sofia's best friend teased from the side. "Oh, the little puppy is angry. Sofia, you should buy him something to cheer him up." Sofia laughed too. "What do you want?" I shook my head. "Nothing." I was tired of explaining. Even though I'd been with Sofia for 3 years without taking a cent from her, the card she gave me was still untouched in her drawer. Everything she bought for me I never used, except for one thing. An album filled with her childhood drawings. That album I kept. Sometimes when I had nothing to do, I'd lie in bed and flip through it. But to Sofia, I was still just a little puppy she kept by her side. Never a real boyfriend. She curled into my arms like a kitten, found a comfortable spot, and began tracing circles on my chest with her fingers. "Do you know Jorge's back?" She whispered. I froze. Jorge, her first love. She'd even called out his name while we were together. After that, I never stayed at her place again. This was the first time. I'd seen her in over 2 weeks. She rubbed her face against me again. Soft and sweet. "Gabriel." This time, Jorge and I must have a result. My arms stiffened around her. My throat went dry. My stomach churned with acid that burned all the way up to my chest. It took me a while to recover. I coughed, voice hoarse. "So what do you mean?" Sofia handed me a card and leaned into me again. "Gabriel, we might be at the end." I looked down at the card and said nothing. For 3 years I gave her everything. Everyone thought I was with her for the money, but I never explained. I embraced her in the rain when she was scared of thunder. I flew through a snowstorm just to bring her a handful of snow, because she once said she wanted to see it. But later I found out it had snowed heavily that day in the city where Jorge was what she wanted. Wasn't the snow I brought back. I worried about her stomach problems, her drinking, her work stress. I looked after her, burned myself out, even fought with my father. Thought I was losing myself in a meaningless romance, but still, I couldn't compare to Jorge. Couldn't compare to him. Just those words made my stomach clench in pain. I swallowed hard and raised the whiskey. Glass in front of me, tilting my head back. The liquor burned down my throat and made my stomach hurt even more, but somehow, that pain made me feel alive. I raised my hand and gently pushed Sofia away. "All right," I smiled. "As you wish." Sofia blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree so easily. "Gabriel, I'll help you find a job." I shook my head. "No need." I stood up, patting down my clothes. "Sofia, everything you gave me these past 3 years, your card, the watch, those limited edition sneakers I've put them all in the safe. The password is your birthday." I turned to leave. Sofia grabbed the corner of my shirt, her delicate face tilted up to me. "Gabriel, wait, you don't even seem upset about the breakup." Said nothing, just turned and walked away. But as I was about to leave the private room, she caught up to me holding her phone in her hand. No one was singing anymore. The room had fallen silent, so quiet that I could hear Jorge's voice clearly on the other end of Sofia's phone. "Make him go to the room," he said. "Then I'll believe you to have no lingering feelings." Sofia hung up, her face expressionless. Her beautiful, fox-like eyes narrowed slightly, a sign she was truly angry. She pointed at my chest. "Gabriel, I'll ask you one more time. Why did you agree to the breakup so quietly? Aren't you upset?" I lowered my head and laughed bitterly. "Wasn't it you who wanted to break up? I'm just giving you what you wanted. Why is that suddenly wrong?" Sophia narrowed her eyes again. Then, after a moment, she smiled. Fine, very fine. She pulled out a card and threw it at me. This is the key card to a room upstairs. There's a woman inside. I need you to make her happy so my negotiation tomorrow goes smoothly. I do it well. And I'll give you a generous breakup fee. But otherwise, you get nothing. Her fingers brushed across my face, her lips curled into a smile, but her eyes stayed cold. My stomach twisted. And my heart had hurt too. I grabbed her wrist, Sophia. What do you take me for? She tilted her head and smiled at me. A big toy, she said. If it feels good, why not let my friends use it too? I stared at her for a long time. This was the woman I had loved for so long. Even her best friend stepped in, visibly uncomfortable. It's enough. If you're going to break up, do it properly. But Sophia ignored her and stubbornly handed me the card again. Going. Or not. I took a deep breath. My chest felt hollow, empty. I looked down at the card for a long time, then smiled. Going. I took the card and turned to leave. Behind me, Sophia called out, Gabriel, you. I stopped, waiting, hoping she'd say something. But in the end, she didn't. Not a single word. I sighed, bitterly. Just this one last time, as she wished. Then I'd cut everything off and never look back. I took the elevator upstairs and ran into the hotel manager. When he saw me, he quickly stepped aside. Gab is here, he said. Is there something Chairman Key wants to convey?
Odd.
I shook my head. Personal matter, yes. The card Sophia gave me was for one of our family's hotel rooms. Glooting. Sophia, everyone in the negotiation team was an executive in our family group. I just hadn't officially joined yet, so most people didn't know. I never told Sophia who I really was. I was afraid the difference in our status would ruin the sincerity of our relationship. But I even knew whose room this was. It belonged to one of our group's key clients. A client Sophia had the right to negotiate with only because of my father and me. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The room was dark, lit only by a dim floor lamp beside the sofa. A slender figure lounged there, her naturally curly hair cascading over her chest. She wore a beige cashmere dress, soft, elegant, and effortless. That must be her. The important client, Diana. When she heard the door, she opened her eyes, her long, upward slanting eyelids fixed on me, unblinking. Then, slowly, she smiled. That's Sophia. Really willing to go all out, she said. She stood and stretched lazily. I just casually mentioned she had a little boy toy, and she actually took it seriously. I lowered my eyes. I'm just here to take a look. If it was just a casual mention, I'll leave. I'm not here to degrade myself. Diana raised her eyebrows. She didn't force you, did she? I didn't answer. Her face darkened, so she did. That's not okay. I don't do things like this. You should go back. I nodded and turned to leave. When I got home, I locked myself in for 3 days. I didn't eat, didn't speak, just existed. 3 days later, my father dragged me out of the house, said he wanted to take me to dinner, something about connections for my future in business. When we entered the private room, I immediately saw a familiar figure at the table. Diana, she raised her eyebrows when she saw me. Her cherry lips moved slightly, but she didn't say a word. Just smiled calm and amused. I knew that smile. She was mocking me, but I pretended not to notice and smiled back. Warmly, no matter how upset I was, business still had to be handled. Diana raised her glass toward me. Mr. Key to you. There. Aren't many pure-hearted young men like you these days? She smiled with narrowed eyes, clearly mocking my naivety. I knew it too in our circle. Guys usually dated models or socialites and were always the ones to walk away first. Never the ones left behind. I was the exception, the fool who tried to be someone's boy toy. And still failed. I smiled bitterly, raised my glass and downed it. Chairman Chen is always right. Then I refilled my glass and toasted Diana. In return, sorry for embarrassing myself. The alcohol burned as it went down, the sorrow in it too sharp, too heavy. My eyes began to sting. My dad, who'd always spoiled me, quickly patted my back. Look at you drink slowly. Don't let Chairman Chen laugh at you. I coughed, wiping the corners of my eyes and forcing a smile. Yeah, I guess I'm quite the joke. I nodded. Toward Diana, sorry for the laugh. She looked at me for a moment, her gaze settling on my red eyes. Then, without saying anything, she gave a soft nod. For the rest of the night, she didn't toast me again, but her eyes were noticeably gentler. After dinner, my dad asked me to take Diana back to the hotel. We sat in silence in the car. Diana stared out the window the entire way. As we neared the hotel, she finally turned and looked at me. I'm sorry, she said. I blinked, confused. Sorry for what? You didn't do anything? She shook her head slowly. I was mocking you in my mind. But then I realized Di was mocking your pain. I shouldn't have done that. Her voice softened. I'm sorry. I lowered my gaze and shook my head. No need to apologize.
Oh, I deserved it.
When we arrived at the hotel entrance, I stepped out and opened the door for her. I won't accompany you upstairs. But Diana looked at me and smiled. Don't you want to have another drink? Her pretty almond-shaped eyes narrowed teasingly. I brought whiskey. I hesitated. It's quite late. She was an important client I didn't want to refuse directly. But between the two of us, she was clearly the one in less danger. Diana laughed lightly. I'm not afraid of you. So why are you afraid of me? Though she smiled. Her gaze was serious. I've been hurt too, she said. We're just two wounded souls. I was moved by the flicker of pain in her eyes. If there were a mirror in front of me, I was sure mine held the same sorrow. I quietly closed the car door. Then I'd be honored. These past few days, every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sofia's cold gaze. The room card she threw at me. Her smile when she mentioned Jorge. I felt like I was falling apart. Maybe I needed a drink. Just want to. Forget the ending of 3 years of sincere love. I walked into the hotel lobby with Diana. The lobby manager immediately came forward to greet us. About to speak when a familiar voice cut through the air. Gabriel. My body stiffened. It was Sofia's voice. She sounded startled, more angry than surprised. What are you doing here? I turned and saw her coming out of the hotel restaurant with a few clients. She narrowed her eyes at me, and then glanced at Diana by my side. She forced a tight smile. Chairman Chen seems like my recommendation suits your taste. Diana smiled icily, slid her arm through mine, and nodded at Sofia. I quite like him. I was stunned by her gesture. And so was Sofia. Her face turned pale. Her voice trembled. Chairman Chen, could I borrow Gabriel for a minute? I just remembered something I need to ask him. Diana looked at me. Seeing I didn't object, she shrugged. Just 2 minutes. We're in a hurry to go upstairs. Sofia bit her lip and motioned for me to come over. I stayed still. She clenched her teeth. Gabriel, could you come here? Her delicate face was full of anger. The coldness in her eyes was growing sharper. I took a deep breath and walked over. I had no idea what she wanted to say, certainly not an apology. Sofia grabbed me by the wrist and pulled me a few steps away. Her fingers were like ice. Her face darkened. Her teeth clenched. Gabriel, don't you feel dirty? I froze. I could accept anything from her, except that word dirty. How am I dirty? I asked quietly, lips pressed into a hard line. Sofia's eyes burned like ice and fire. I thought you wouldn't really go upstairs. But you did, didn't you? She studied my face, my niqaz, if trying to uncover some hidden evidence. What did you do, huh? Her voice cracked. Her anger flared. But as I looked at her, this storm of jealousy and pride, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of surprise and amusement. I looked down at her trembling hands and asked softly, Didn't you tell me to go, Sofia? I was just following your orders. I was angry at you, she snapped, her voice rising. I was just angry. The fire in Sofia's eyes burned hotter, her eyes turning red, her lips trembling with fury. How was I supposed to know you'd actually go and sleep with someone else? Gabriel, don't you have any shame? Sofia, an executive who usually hid her emotions behind teasing and cold indifference, was now standing in front of me like a child who had just lost her favorite toy. There was something real in her expression, something raw, glimpse of the Sofia from long ago. I closed my eyes and let out a long sigh. Sofia, have to go. We're done. I turned around and walked back to Diana. She slipped her hand through my arm as we stepped into the elevator together. Behind me, I heard Sofia's voice, low and trembling with fury. Gabriel, I paused. Just for a second, but I didn't. Turn around. Kept walking. Diana and I drank quietly, heavily. She didn't speak. I didn't speak. We just poured, toasted, and drank in silence. I stared out the window, lost in the memories of the past 3 years. She looked out the window too, clearly trapped in her own world. After a long while, I noticed her eyes were damp with tears. She smiled faintly. Why are there so many people in this world who don't know how to cherish what they have? Her voice trembled with bitterness. They trample on others' genuine feelings. Don't they feel anything at all? Don't they feel sad? I didn't answer, just raised another glass and drank it down. Diana turned her head to look at the city lights. A single tear slipped quietly down her cheek. We drank for 5 hours from evening until the early morning. When Diana finally fell asleep, I gently carried her to the bed, tucked her in, and staggered downstairs with a splitting headache. As I reached the lobby, I heard someone call out behind me, Gabriel. I turned, and there she was. Sofia, curled up on the sofa in the lobby, wrapped in a shawl. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smudged, and her eyes red from crying. She stood up and walked toward me. I've been waiting for you all night. Why did you just come down now? She stopped a few steps away. I've thought about it carefully. You're not that kind of person. Nothing happened between you and her, right? I rubbed my temples. The pain in my head was almost unbearable, and it mixed with the deeper ache in my chest. Sofia stared at me, clearly unwilling to leave without an answer. I almost laughed. All those nights. It had always been me waiting for her. I waited while she claimed she was working overtime when the office building was already dark. I waited while Jorge toasted her in her best friend's social media posts. Once, twice, again and again. I waited until I had no hope left, and now it was her turn to wait all night for me. Too late, I gave a soft, bitter laugh. Sofia, does this still concern you? We still owe each other explanations? She hesitated, searching for something to hold on to. You owe me money, she finally said. So why can't I ask? I pressed my fingers to my forehead, disappointment washing over me again. Disappointment so deep it had long since turned into despair. I stared at her and said quietly, Sofia, if you'd ever truly cared about me, you would have noticed that in these 3 years, I never spent a penny of your money. I never touched your card, but she still didn't believe me. Then what about your clothes, your watch, your bag? They were bought with my own money, I interrupted, my patience slipping. Sofia, everyone around you flatters. You for money, so you assume everyone's like that. But I'm not. I looked her dead in the eyes, each word deliberate and firm. I'm different from them. Sofia bit her lip. Gabriel. How about we talk again? I shook my head. Talk about what, Sofia? I didn't want to pretend anymore. I decided to rip the old wound open and let it bleed. Shall we talk? About how every time Jorge called, you pushed me away to go find him. Or how every time he returned, you worked late heaven when the entire office was dark and the security guards were asleep. Or how you couldn't even break up with me properly, how you pushed me into another woman's room like I was a toy. Shall we talk about that? Even if it was all in the past, Evan? If I had tried to let go, those memories still made me tremble. They stabbed like needles into my heart, each one sharper than the last. I took a shaky breath and looked at her. One last time. So tell me, Sofia, what exactly do you want to talk about? I gave her a bitter smile. Or have you decided to leave Jorge, and now you want me back? Sofia went silent. Then, she suddenly began to cry. Gabriel, she whispered, covering her face, her shoulders trembling. I can't do it. I've waited for him too long. I closed my eyes. The pain in my heart felt like it was tearing me apart from the inside. My voice came out cold and detached, as if it belonged to someone else. Fine, then just leave me alone, okay? I don't care who I drink with, whose room I enter, or whose bed I sleep in. From now on, it has nothing to do with you. Sofia sobbed quietly behind me. I didn't turn around. I walked toward the door. The early morning wind hit me sharp and cold, slicing through the fog of alcohol, scattering the last bit of reluctance still lingering in me. When I got home, I drunkenly rummaged through my bedroom. After digging through drawers and shelves, I finally found it's an old album. It's the only thing of Sofia's I had ever kept. Sofia had loved drawing as a child. The album was full of vivid sketches of two children, a lively little girl with sparkling eyes and a quiet little boy by her side. Wherever they went, the girl would hold the boy's hand tightly, never letting go. Even when they were bullied by older kids, they stood together, hands clasped, refusing to part. The pages had yellowed over time. Some pencil lines had faded, blurred by years. I had held on to it. Even after Sofia tried to throw it away, I rescued it from the trash. I'd often find myself flipping through it, especially when I needed to remind myself that she had once brought me warmth. Once, she had held my hand so tightly, as if she never wanted to let go. I closed the album and fell asleep in my clothes. In my dream, the younger Sofia was holding my hand, pulling me away, laughing. Then the grown-up Sofia appeared, her eyes cold as she said, "I'm tired of you. Let's break up." I didn't wake up until 10 in the morning. My phone showed several missed calls from my dad. His message was short. "Come to the company at noon. Take Diana out. Visit some scenic spots." I understood. My dad really wanted me to see Diana. In families like ours, marriages are arranged. Everyone else accepted it. Everyone except me. I had believed foolishly, perhaps that love with Sofia could make things different. I had always resisted. I refused every arranged date. That's why I hadn't even been allowed to work at the company yet. Even now, I didn't want to marry someone I didn't love. I didn't want to have a child just to fulfill some obligation, only to live apart later and pretend everything was fine. I was about to refuse again. But then Diana's tear came to mind, that one silent drop that slid down her cheek as she stared out the window last night. Her face had been blank, almost expressionless. But beneath her almond-shaped eyes, there had been a glimmer of sorrow, and that subtle pain. It's made it impossible for me to say no. So at noon, I drove to the company. I waited in the lobby, casually scrolling through my phone, expecting Diana to come down at any moment. That's when a pair of beige heels appeared in front of me. I glanced up, smiling automatically. "I've been waiting for you, but it wasn't Diana. It was Sofia." She wore a sharp business suit. Light makeup with the dark circles under her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Her usually flawless face looked tired, hollow. She looked at me for a long moment and finally said, "Gabriel, you came to find me, right? But what's the point now? That day I called out to you, and you didn't even turn back." I stared at her, stunned. "I didn't come to find you." Sofia frowned, confused. "Then why are you here, if not for me?" "I'm waiting for someone." Just then, someone tugged on my sleeve and slipped their arm through mine. "Shall we go?" I turned. It was Diana. Today she wore denim, her hair braided into two playful twists. She looked far more vibrant than the last two times I had seen her. She tilted her head and smiled, her eyes bright. "Aren't you here to take me out?" Looking at her smooth forehead and the dimples that lit up her smile, I suddenly felt the sun warming my back. I nodded. "Let's go. I'll take you to the wetland park first, then maybe we can go hiking." As Diana and I walked out together, her hand still looped through my arm. I barely noticed the intimacy of the gesture, but behind us Sofia's voice broke the air. "Gabriel, come back." I didn't stop. Her voice trembled with tears. "Come back. Look at me." I raised a hand. Behind me, waving goodbye. Then I got into the car with Diana and drove off. People in the company lobby watched us as we left. But no one was more stunned than Sofia. Sofia sent me a WeChat message. "Where did you get the sports car? Did Diana give it to you? Gabriel, are you with her for money? A few minutes later, she sent another, Gabriel, you're not that kind of person, right? Diana's circle is different from ours. She's just playing with you, I replied simply. Weren't you just playing too? Sofia didn't respond. Diana noticed and took my phone from my hand. We're out to have fun, so let's really enjoy it, she said lightly. Why the long face? She turned to the window and added, there's no sadness that alcohol can't solve. If one drink doesn't work, have to. I remembered the tear that had silently fallen down her cheek the night before, and my curiosity got the better of me. Chairman Chen Jr., I said quietly. It sounds like you have some unresolved past as well. Diana glanced back at me with a small smile. As we passed the wetland park, she looked out at the view and spoke calmly. My ex-boyfriend didn't know about my family background at first. He claimed he loved me deeply. But after I took over the family business and refused his unreasonable demands, he hired people to kidnap me, hoping for a big payday. Then he planned to kill me. I was stunned. There was a long pause before I murmured, sorry, I shouldn't have asked. She shook her head gently. It's okay. It's all in the past. Then, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, she said, but during that time, I relied on alcohol to get through. That's why I told you to drink. I know how painful it is to have your sincere feelings betrayed. She said it so lightly, yet I was suddenly struck by the weight behind her words. Diana was only 26, yet she had been forced to shoulder the entire family business after her father's stroke, and had been betrayed by someone she loved. The trauma of being kidnapped by that person must have been devastating. I hesitated, then gently patted her shoulder. It's all in the past. Now, we spent the day visiting different places. During a break, I checked my phone and saw a social media post from Sofia's best friend. Sofia's engaged to her love. The attached photo showed Sofia in the company lobby, smiling as she accepted a bouquet of roses from Jorge. A diamond ring sparkled on her finger. Her best friend had added a comment to her own post. Some people have successfully missed their last chance to make amends. I looked at the picture of Sofia and Jorge embracing, and felt nothing in particular. It was as if the sharp blade that had hung over my head for so long had finally fallen. Felt relieved. I put my phone down and continued spending time with Diana. We hiked 8 together and ended the evening with a movie. By the time I dropped her off, it was already 10 o'clock. On my way home, I received a call. It was Sofia. Her voice was slurred, clearly drunk. Gabriel, didn't you see the post? Why didn't you react? I let out a soft laugh. What kind of reaction do you want? You want me to congratulate you? Send a gift? There was a pause. Her voice cracked hoarse and low. Gabriel, you're not happy, are you?
Ass.
If you're unhappy, she whispered, just say the word, and I will. She trailed off. I lowered my eyes and mocked, and what? What exactly will you do? It's not like you're going to refuse Jorge now, are you? She hesitated, then hesitated again. I laughed quietly. Sofia, if you want my blessing, then you have it. I wish you and Jorge a lifetime of happiness. Don't be conflicted anymore, you. Can't let him go. She went silent. Just as I was about to hang up, she finally said, I thought I couldn't let go. But now I'm not sure. Gabriel, I don't know how to choose. When I see you with Diana, it's like there's a fire burning in my heart. I ended the call without another word. Disappointment. You can recover from that. But despair? That's a different story. My dad. Seeing I was no longer moving out or chasing after a certain female employee, was genuinely pleased. He encouraged me to start working at the company soon, suggesting I begin by collaborating with Diana. Meanwhile, Sofia sent another message. Gabriel, I regret it. I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked her on every platform phone, WeChat, Weibo, QQ, Douyin, and Shuhongshu. I wanted her completely out of my life. Sofia's best friend later cursed me on social media, aiming me for driving Sofia crazy. Even Jorge called me. Gabriel, he sneered, you play hard to get very well, but you're just a toy. Sofia will never really care about you. After I hung up, I stared at the custom-tailored suit my dad had made for me and fell into deep thought. I wondered if Jorge knew that the new boss arriving at the company tomorrow was named Gabriel. The next day, the department meeting included the cooperation department. Jorge and Sofia, both managers, were waiting in the conference room, eagerly anticipating the arrival of the old chairman's son. They wore polite smiles, postured perfectly as the door finally swung open, and I walked in. Sofia stood up abruptly. "Gabriel, why are you here?" Before she could finish, the assistant stepped forward and introduced me respectfully. "Is Chairman Key's son. You can just call him Gab. From now on, please cooperate with him and perform at your best." Sofia froze. I saw the color drain from her face. Of course, she didn't know. I had never come to the company before, never mentioned my background. I'd been so compliant, so easy to please. Who would have thought I was the only son of Chairman Key? I calmly took a seat and gestured toward her. "Manager Lin, don't be so formal. Sit down. Speak freely." Sofia remained stiff, unable to move until Jorge gave her a slight nudge. Even then, his own face had darkened, almost turning a sickly purple hue. He pulled her down into the seat beside him, clearly shaken. I lowered my head and flipped open the documents. "Let's begin. Report one by one." When it came to Sofia's turn, she could hardly form a coherent sentence. I interrupted without emotion. "If Manager Lin can't explain things clearly, find someone who can. This was the empire my father built with blood and sweat, not a place for sentimentality." Jorge did relatively well, aside from the tremble in his hands when handling the paperwork. At least the rest of his report was acceptable. The meeting lasted an hour. Ended, and I stepped out of the conference room. Sofia suddenly seemed to come back to life and chased after me. "Gabriel, you..." But again, she couldn't finish her sentence, because standing outside my office was Diana, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. She smiled at me. Everything went smoothly. The sunlight streamed in through the windows behind her, catching in her hair and the petals of the sunflowers, casting a warm, golden glow. I smiled and took the bouquet from her hands. "Thank you. Come in and sit." Sofia instinctively tried to follow us inside, but the office door closed firmly in her face. Inside, Diana sat gracefully across from me, carefully arranging the sunflowers in a vase. "Gab, our collaboration ends next month," she said with a gentle smile. "After that, I might not come around here much anymore." A strange sense of loss washed over me. I didn't quite understand it, but I figured it was because she had been by my side during my lowest point. I had leaned on her more than I realized. Watching her silently, I suddenly blurted, "Can I still visit you? In your city?" Diana looked up, her eyes soft and shimmering. After a pause, she smiled and looked down. "You're welcome any time." I swallowed hard. For some reason, I felt nervous, like there was more I wanted to say, but didn't know how to express it just then. The office door slammed open. Annoyed, I turned to see Sofia rushing in. Her eyes were red. She no longer looked like the poised, confident woman she used to be. "Are you really Chairman Key's only son?" she asked, breathless. I nodded. Diana smiled and added lightly, "Yes, Manager Lin, you've unknowingly kept Chairman Key's son as your little pet for 3 years." Sofia's face went even paler. "Why? Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her, her flawless makeup, her carefully crafted persona, realized I couldn't see the little girl she once was anymore. I closed my eyes, disappointed to the core. There was no longer any point in hiding. "Sofia," I said quietly, "I'm not just Key's son. I had another name when I was a child, Gabe Mo." Sofia collapsed to the ground, knocking over a teacup on the way down. Her hand was cut by the broken porcelain, blood dripping steadily, but she didn't even notice. She just stared up at me, as if seeing a ghost. And then, as if remembering something horrible, she whispered, "What have I done?" She repeated the words, her voice shaking. "What have I done?" She didn't know if she was asking me or herself. Back then, my father was a second-generation heir, still carrying my grandfather's surname. Mo. But my grandfather got addicted to gambling and lost everything: our home, our security. He abandoned my grandmother and us, vanishing. Without a trace, we were left with nothing. We lived in slums, scraping by, crushed under mounting debt. I went from being the richest kid in school to the poorest stand. With that fall came humiliation, taunts, and relentless bullying. But I wasn't alone. There was a girl in that school, Sofia. Her father was disabled. Her mother was mentally ill. She was an outcast, just like me. The first time I was cornered by bullies, Sofia suddenly appeared. She grabbed my hand and we ran like our lives depended on it. She knew every shortcut, every blind alley, and somehow we lost them. That was how we met. After that, we clung to each other, shared everything: our bruises, our hunger, even our stolen lunches. We fought back, laughed through our pain, and begged for food when there was no other choice. We were each other's only light in that dark world. And now, looking at her, all grown up but completely unrecognizable, I realized, somewhere along the way, we had both changed, but not in the same direction. Later, my dad moved us to another city to start over and transferred me to a different school. Sofia and I didn't want to be separated. We even ran away from home. My dad had to call the police to find us. When we finally had to part, I promised Sofia that I would come back for her. During the years we spent apart, not a single day passed without me thinking of the girl who had shared my hardest days. Thankfully, my family eventually regained financial stability, and we were able to return to our hometown. But not everything was the same. My grandmother passed away from overwork before we could make it back. My father told me that since my grandfather had abandoned us and my grandmother had given her all for our family, we should honor her by taking her surname. And so, I changed my name from Gabmo to Gabriel Key. When we returned, Sofia had just joined the company. She was capable, hardworking, but she didn't recognize me. As I spent more time around her, I noticed she went out of her way to avoid talking about her childhood. It was clear she had cut ties with her past entirely. I didn't reveal who I was. I pursued her quietly, stood by her side, thinking I had fulfilled the promise we made long ago. Believed I had finally returned for her. But I never imagined I was only a temporary chapter in her story. Now, looking at her sitting on the ground, my heart, once so full of love for her, felt strangely still. But inside me, the younger Gabriel was crying silently, heartbroken. We had promised to grow up and stay together. Back then, holding hands, we were closer than anyone. But in the end, this was where we landed. I called for iodine and a Band-Aid. Squatting down, I tended to Sofia's bleeding hand, carefully applying the iodine and dressing her wound. Then I smiled at her and said softly, "I once thought we'd really fulfill our promise, to be together." Tears fell down Sofia's face. Her lips trembled. She couldn't speak. Only soft, broken sobs escaped. But somehow, we ended up like this. I stood and helped her up. "Sofia, we can't go any further. This is the end." Kept flowing. Her beautiful eyes shimmered with pain, filled with unspoken words and silent pleading. After what felt like forever, she finally spoke, her voice trembling. "If I had known it was you, I would never have treated you that way." Too late, I walked over and opened the office door. The best time has already passed, and now we're at a dead end. Sofia stood at the door of my office for a long time, that decrying, until her legs gave out and she broke down completely. Eventually, my father noticed. He came down just as I was handing her an old photo album. "This is the only thing I kept from you," I said gently. "From everything you gave me, I guess there's no point in keeping it anymore. We both have to move forward now." Sofia's trembling hands opened the album. Inside were childish drawings of two kids, one being beaten while the other cried beside him, one running while the other distracted the bullies, one holding the other as they looked up at the sky in silence. On the final page was a simple promise, that they would grow up and stay together. Every stroke in that album was sincere. Every line held a memory. And now, all of it felt like a cruel joke. As she turned to the last page, tears streamed down her cheeks and landed on the paper. Then she closed the album, turned around, and ran off crying, her shoulders trembling, her figure staggering. And in that moment I saw the same girl from long ago, the same girl who once ran beside me, through alleyways, away from pain. My father stood next to me and asked, "Will you keep her on?" I hesitated for a moment before answering, "If she performs well, keep her. If not, let her go." Deep down, I still believed in Sofia, the girl who had fought her way out of the slums, the one who had changed her personality completely, the one who had buried her past to survive. She deserved the position she'd earned. She just didn't keep our childhood promise, but that's okay. It's all behind us now. I turned to Diana and said, "I'll be visiting your city for a business trip this month. Will you welcome me?" Diana looked at me quietly. After a moment, she handed me a sunflower. "Welcome," she said softly. Jorge resigned. Even if he hadn't, I doubt he could have faced me day after day. Following my lead, however, Sofia had helped him a lot in his career. After resigning, he struggled to find a suitable job. He felt frustrated and disheartened, wanting to return. But I don't go back to the past, nor do I accept being treated as a fallback. Career and love are the same in that way. After that day, Sofia took a leave of absence. She hadn't taken a vacation in years, and now she was gone for an entire month. A month later, she was waiting for me downstairs at the company. She had lost a lot of weight. Her hair had grown out, untrimmed. Her usual professional attire was replaced by casual clothes. Still in the matching couple style I had once picked out for us, when she saw me, she burst into tears without saying a word. "Gabriel," she choked. "This past month I visited every temple I could, praying for time to reverse." She smiled bitterly. "I know it's nonsense, but I couldn't help it. What if? What if there's really a God who hears me? If time could reverse, I'd never treat you this way." I glanced at my watch. "Sofia, I have to pick someone up for dinner, so let's keep this short. Also, work's been very busy lately. Suggest not taking leave unless it's for health or family reasons." Sofia was stunned. After a moment, she forced a bitter smile. "So, I have no chance, right?" I didn't answer because I saw Diana walking toward us with a smile. "I came early to avoid traffic," Diana said. I reached out to her. "Let's go. Let's have dinner early and catch a movie." We walked away hand in hand, forgetting that Sofia was still standing behind us. Then came the soft sound of crying. "Gabriel, I'm here to resign. Can't face you anymore." Diana paused and looked at me. "Should you talk to her?" I shook my head. "No need." I turned back to Sofia and smiled sincerely, like I used to when we were kids. "Sofia, I agree. I wish you all the best." Then I turned around and walked away with Diana. The crying behind us grew louder, eventually turning into gooch-wrenching wails of regret, but I couldn't look back. There was still a long road ahead for Diana and me to walk together. I held Diana's hand tightly and she gently squeezed mine in return. This time, neither of us would let go. I don't like it when people bring up my childhood. It was the most shameful, unbearable period of my life. Later, I worked like crazy, studied like crazy, all to shake off the shadow of my past, the shadow of being laughed at and bullied. But the one thing I could never shake off was the smile of a boy. His smile was so sincere. Gab and I gradually became inseparable. We went everywhere together. One day, his childish voice solemnly promised me, "When I grow up, I'll work hard, make money, and marry you." Back then, we believed marriage was the promise of never being separated. I matured earlier than he did. I knew it wasn't realistic. Kids like us couldn't afford to like each other. Otherwise, we'd just drag each other into hell. But somehow, I still nodded. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Even now, when I look back, I don't know why I said that. Later, Gab had to transfer to another city. He hugged me and cried. I usually followed the principle of avoiding trouble, but that day something clouded my judgment. "Why don't you run away from home?" I asked. We can survive by picking up trash. Gab nodded heavily. And so, we ran to the outskirts holding hands, walking. We were so naive back then. We really thought our efforts alone could keep us going. But less than a day later, Gab was found by the police. No one came looking for me because my parents hadn't even reported me missing. When the police brought us back and we had to part, Gab cried his heart out, hugging me tightly. Sofia, wait for me. I'll definitely come back for you. By then, I already knew adults often don't keep their promises, let alone children. But when Gab said that, for some reason, I believed him. I didn't cry, but I nodded very seriously. I'll wait for you. 10 years passed. My father, disabled but a compulsive gambler, would sell off our family belongings when he lost. Finally, he pinned his hopes on me. If you sleep with the dealer for one night, he said, our lives will turn around. He even brought the dealer home to inspect me. But that day,
my mother had an episode.
She came out of the kitchen wielding a knife. When my mother was lucid, she loved me. She hugged me and said, go. Never come back. I grabbed my documents and ran. Moments later, my mother set our dilapidated home on fire. From that moment on, I had no home. I worked desperately hard and eventually landed a job at Key Corporation. Everyone there knew not to mess with me. I was ruthless to anyone who stood in my way. I didn't have a choice. This instinct had been carved into me since childhood. When former classmates heard about my success, they came crawling back, trying to cozy up to me. But they didn't understand I rejected my past with a fierceness they couldn't fathom. Anyone who even hinted at knowing the old me was instantly cut off. That past was my shame, my pain. A festering wound I refused to let anyone touch. The simple, innocent Sofia of the past was gone. In her place stood someone hollowed out, morally numb, living only for fleeting pleasures. I drank heavily, partied wildly, lived recklessly. I pursued her hey-man from a refined intellectual family as if chasing a childhood dream I could never afford. Back then, I dreamed of becoming a university professor. So even though I knew Jorge was just stringing me along, I kept chasing like a donkey after a carrot, exhausted. But unwilling to let go, others chased after me, too especially wealthy. Men, but I couldn't stand the rich. Every glittering detail of their world stabbed at my pride, reminding me of the little girl who had nothing. They had never known poverty, and I had never known anything else. The inferiority complex was buried too deep, couldn't be undone, and so I wasted my youth chasing Jorge, twisted, directionless, drowning in a quiet kind of despair, until one night, in a noisy, smoky nightclub, an incredibly handsome boy approached me. He wasn't good at flirting, awkwardly downing drink after drink, thinking it would impress me. I didn't like that kind of innocence, but still, I kept him that night. It wasn't the drinks. It was the shadow I saw in his eyes, a shadow I recognized. Something buried deep within, me tangled with my shame, my pain, my past. I thought he was just another club boy. When I took him home, he overheard me on a drunken call with my best friend, cursing the second-generation rich kids in the harshest words. Then I turned my rage toward my former classmates for trying to worm their way back into my life. He stiffened in the passenger seat. I laughed, thinking I'd scared him. I reached over and patted his head. Don't worry, I said. I'm not like this in bed. He gave me a forced smile, fell into deep thought. He told me his name was Gabriel Key, said he had no money, no job. Our company boss shared the same last name, so I joked, go check your family tree. Maybe your distant relatives. You could get some help. Gabriel just laughed awkwardly. He was ridiculously good-looking. The strong Bodhi on soon, I found myself wanting him around. We moved in together. Gabriel was kind, genuinely kind. I gave him cards, gifts, luxury items, but he never became materialistic. Sometimes I thought maybe he was meant to be a monk, so calm, so detached, yet so devoted to me. Even when everyone around us said I was just playing with him, he remained earnest. For 3 whole years, people aren't plants, can't live without feelings. Every night I woke from nightmares, screaming about my past. Gabriel would be there, holding me. Whenever I drank until I collapsed, crying for the mother who burned my home down, he'd cradle me and whisper, "I'll love you in her place." And every time my heart twisted in jealousy toward the rich, Gabriel would just sit beside me in silence, gently patting my back, listening to the ugliest parts of me without judgment. 3 years passed, and to the world, I kept saying, "I'm just having fun." But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. I had developed feelings for him too. I even thought about giving Gabriel a stable position at work, something like an administrator, and then marrying him. But just as I was finally ready to settle down in the 3rd year, Jorge came back. When I welcomed Jorge back into my life, I didn't invite Gabriel. Still, Jorge saw a photo of him from my best friend and sneered, "He's quite good looking." I just smiled and said nothing.
Howie.
Within days, Jorge requested a transfer back to headquarters where he could work closely with me, asking for help with his projects. I agreed. Jorge was pleased and jokingly said, "Kick that poor boy out, tits. Time to settle down." I frowned at the phrase, "poor boy." I didn't like anyone being labeled like that, especially not Gabriel. But this was Jorge. Marrying him would mean finally being part of an intellectual family. My children could become university professors. The misery and inferiority of my childhood had long since twisted into a bloodthirsty beast inside me, sharp, fierce, devouring every trace of feeling and conscience. I wanted to erase every imprint of my past and become someone new. A Sofia who annihilates the past. Those few days, I couldn't look Gabriel in the eye. I didn't even dare speak too much. Thought I was under too much pressure, and even offered to buy a cat to help me relax. He made soup, invited me to go hiking, always so careful, so kind. I thought about it endlessly, and finally decided I had to get drunk to tell him. I called my best friend and Gabriel to go sing karaoke, drinking recklessly. Whiskey stung my nose, making me cough and tear up. When I got drunk, I lay in Gabriel's arms and laughed. We're done. I think my years of harsh self-discipline had worked. I'd become an emotionless creature driven by nothing but ambition. I said it just like that, watching Gabriel's eyes go from bright to dull under the room's soft light. I thought he would beg me to stay. For a moment, I even hoped he would, because if he had asked, I might have reconsidered. But he didn't. He just stood up quietly, nodded, and turned to leave as if our 3 years together had meant nothing at all. I was instantly furious. Jorge had told me he suspected I had real feelings for Gabriel. He suggested I push Gabriel to get close to our new major client to prove where my loyalties lay. We had heard the client had just gone through a painful breakup and was emotionally vulnerable. The idea was to use that to our advantage, and with the ruthless nature I'd developed over the years, I should have agreed without hesitation. But that night, I found myself wishing Gabriel would ask me not to do it. If he had begged, maybe I would have said no to Jorge. Maybe I wouldn't have pushed Gabriel to someone else, but Gabriel showed no hesitation, no reluctance. And that dash hurt. I smiled coldly and handed him the hotel room card. "Go accompany the client," I said. "Big sister will give you a breakup fee." Gabriel had already reached the door, the hallway light illuminating his face. I saw it then, a flash of pain in his eyes, and it made me happy at least. He was hurting too. I thought I was prepared, but nothing could have prepared me for the pain of seeing Gabriel with Diana. It felt like an invisible hand had reached into my chest, squeezing my heart, its nails digging in, twisting, mangling. The pain was unbearable, far beyond what I thought I could handle. Even though I prided myself on endurance, I didn't care about the client's opinion anymore. I rushed over, unable to hold back, questioned Gabriel, though I knew I no longer had the right to. For the first time ever, the gentle Gabriel looked at me coldly. "You don't have the right to interfere in my life," he said with a sneer. "Or are you thinking about giving up on Jorge?" I thought I would shake my head without hesitation. Who wouldn't choose Jorge? But in that moment I hesitated. Reason told me Jorge was the only path that could truly sever me from my past. The only way to climb out of the shadow of everything I'd suffered. But my heart whispered something else. Can you really let go of Gabriel? Can you bear to? How can you bear to? I had grown up in the worst of environments. I had been forced to make rational choices my entire life. But for the first time, I wasn't sure if I could. At that moment, I cried and said I couldn't let go of Jorge. The voice in my heart sighed long and deep, as if it already foresaw the pain and loneliness that awaited me. After Gabriel left, I began having nightmares every night. In every one of them, a group of people chased me relentlessly, without pause. And always, there was a figure running beside me, fleeing with me. But I could never see his face. Every morning, I woke up in tears, instinctively reaching out to the other side of the bed, searching for Gabriel. But he wasn't there. He was never there. More than once, I sat in silence until dawn, repeating to myself that I would forget. Eventually, just like I had forgotten parts of my childhood, if you want to forget badly enough, the memory fades. But this time, it didn't fade. This time, it was different. Gabriel was different. I couldn't forget him. When I saw Gabriel come to the company to pick up Diana, I felt panic, jealousy, and heartache surge all at once. I wanted to run to him, to grab his hand and beg for him back right in front of Diana, watching him drive. Often that sleek sports car only deepened the dread in my chest. I was terrified. Terrified that if he found happiness with Diana, he might never return. I called him that night. I told him Diana was only toying with him, that he shouldn't take it seriously. But God knows my words had no good intentions. I just couldn't stand the thought of Gabriel looking at someone else with the same gaze he once reserved for me. But Gabriel replied calmly, "Weren't you just playing with me too?" I froze. I had no answer. He was right. What right did I have to lecture Gabriel about seeing through people when I was the one who hurt him the most? That same day Jorge proposed to me. I nodded in a daze. There was no way back. Jorge was the only path left for me. But deep inside, something mourned. I felt as if I'd lost something precious, something that could never be replaced. A missing piece in my heart that left behind only silence. I used to imagine all sorts of identities for Gabriel: a club promoter, a gigolo, struggling actor, maybe even a waiter. But I never imagined he was the heir to Key Corporation. When he walked into the meeting room, I was stunned. My first reaction was shock, pure, instinctive panic. My career flashed before my eyes, but then a deeper kind of fear crept in, a fear I couldn't name. It felt like something was about to crash down on me, something so painful I couldn't bear it. I was so afraid that I threw away my pride. I ran after Gabriel, chased him all the way to his office. I even begged him just to look at me one more time. If he looked at me again, would he remember? Would he recall that once he had truly loved me? But he didn't look at me. His eyes were on Diana, with the same gentle gaze he once gave me. I never imagined that seeing Gabriel love another woman truly tenderly could hurt so deeply. The pain was sharp, unbearable. I clutched my chest, barely able to stay standing, but I told myself it was fine. I had climbed this far. What hadn't I endured? And then he said, he told me he was Gabmo. I couldn't breathe. In that instant, I heard a deafening crack inside my mind. Boom. The walls I'd built for years came crashing down. All those buried memories, shameful, bitter, heartbreaking, came flooding back. And at the very bottom of those ruins, I saw a little boy. He stood there quietly, looking up at me. "We promised to be together. Did you forget?" I fell. My hand scraped the floor, blood pooling across my palm. But I didn't care. I stared at Gabriel, finally realizing why he had always felt so familiar. The ache in my chest turned into a silent scream. I warned you not to get close." Tears poured down my face. The pain was too much. My knees gave out. Could no longer stand. He had been my childhood's only light, my teenage hope. The one beautiful memory in a childhood filled with ugliness. The only pure part of my past, and I treated him like a toy, used him up. Tossed him aside when I was done. Suddenly I remembered something. After our breakup, I went through my drawers and closet. I found every card, every gift Gabriel had ever given me. But there was one thing missing: my sketchbook. The one I had told him to throw away. He hadn't thrown it away. He had picked it up like it was a treasure. He had kept it, carefully, tenderly. That sketchbook held every warm detail of our shared childhood, and now, all these years later, Gabriel had returned it to me. Severing our last connection, I covered my face and sobbed uncontrollably. Gabriel gently applied iodine and bandaged my wound. He sighed softly. "Sofia, we've really reached the end." In that moment, it felt like I could hear the voice inside him sigh, too. During all those days I waited, if you had turned back even once, we wouldn't be here now. I had no strength left to respond. For more than 10 years, I had fought relentlessly, never backing down from anything. As long as I could speak, I could defend myself. But now I had nothing left. I could fail anyone in this world, but not Gabmo. That was what broke me. It drained everything from me. Later, I took a month off from work. I went from temple to temple, praying for a chance to turn back time. That was the only thing keeping me going. The thought that maybe, just maybe, I could undo the past. But time didn't care. A month passed. The world moved forward. My despair deepened, and my longing for Gabriel only grew stronger. I couldn't resist seeing him again. He looked perfect dressed in a sharp suit, smiling, radiant. He looked happy. And in that instant, I realized something unbearable. I had never seen that happiness before. I had never given it to him. I knew I should let him go. Let him be happy. But my heart couldn't accept it. I missed him terribly. Achingly. My Mo. My Gabriel. The only person other than my mother who had ever been kind to me. He had done it not once but twice. I begged him to give me another chance. But before I could even finish, Gabriel interrupted me, still smiling, but not at me. He was looking ahead. I turned to follow his gaze. Diana was standing there in the sunlight, dressed in beige, gentle, bright. Her smile pierced me like a blade. It was the kind of smile I, living in the shadows, could never have. A wave of old, familiar inferiority crashed over me. I shrank back, retreating into the corner. I stood there and watched Gabriel walk away hand in hand with her. I stood there and let the sharp claws of jealousy tear through me. And that's when I finally understood. I had lost, completely. It was time to step back. To disappear, I quit my job. The girl who once only cared about climbing higher had vanished. Overnight, I lost all ambition. I ended my engagement with Jorge. One day Jorge asked me, "Is it because I still haven't found a job? Do you look down on me now?" I shook my head. No, it's because I look down on myself. I returned to my alma mater and opened a small convenience store nearby. The store faced the old playground where Gab and I used to sit together and watch. The stars back then, little Gab would point at the sky and say, "Sophie, my Aries is right there. And your Scorpio's over there." I never knew if he was pointing correctly, but I always played along. They're not far apart, I'd say. That must mean Aries and Scorpio are good friends, right? They'll never be separated. Gab would scratch his head and laugh. Just like us. We'll never be apart. Now I stand beneath those same stars, watching them from the playground while running my little store. To this day, still can't tell which one is Aries and which one is Scorpio, but it doesn't matter. As long as they're the same stars Gabriel and I once looked at together, that's enough. As long as I still have those memories, I never married. I stayed alone for the rest of my life. Gabriel, on the other hand, appeared in the news often. He married Diana. They had a son and a daughter. His business flourished. He grew wiser, stronger. No longer the shy boy who once chased after me. One day a reporter asked him half-jokingly, "Have you only ever loved your wife?" I watched the clip. He paused. Just for a second. Then smiled and nodded. Yes, I covered my face and wept. That year I was 50. That year I finally learned how to tell Aries from Scorpio. But by then, it was too late. For the rest of my life, I would never see my Gabriel again, my boy.